Okay, let's move into Module 11, but we're going to be starting in Lesson 4 instead of starting at the beginning. And it's going to be kind of a repeat of some of the stuff that we've done before, but it's really set up so that you are successful in factoring. So we're going to be solving quadratic equations by factoring. And to solve by factoring, and especially because we're dealing with equations here in this particular instance, hold on. And in this case, because we're dealing with equations, what we really mean is we really mean that it's something that has an equal sign. So you'll notice here's an example: x squared minus x minus 12 equals 0. That's an example of a quadratic equation. The reason that it is considered quadratic is because of that squared, that x to the second power right at the beginning. This identifies it as quadratic. And what we do is like what we do normally. We are going to use Desmos. You'll get a chance to see how to do that. We're going to factor just like we did in Module 10. So that's where we learned how to do some of the factoring, including some of the special factoring. And then the last thing we're going to do is solve, which is something that's brand new. So we're going to figure out here first, a is equal to 1, b is equal to -1, c is equal to -12. Given the fact that a is equal to 1, we just need to use the table, so we don't have to go through and do any boxing or grouping. So we're going to take that -12, put it over our table like we normally do, and we are going to look at the sign. So notice here, because this is a negative, that means we have a positive and a negative value. We don't know which one's which yet. And then we look at this one, and this tells me that the larger one is negative. So that means we'd have plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. And what's important is that our smaller value is going to be on the left, our larger value is going to be on the right. So we have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And you notice that when we have positive 3, -4, add those two up, we get a -1. So here are our factors. Because a is equal to 1, I can immediately write this out in an equation. So I have x plus 3 times x minus 4, which replaces this part right here, equals 0. Now, we've done the factoring already. Now our next step is to solve it. So this is a little bit different. So when we have these multiplication types of problems, x plus 3 times, because there's a times there, times x minus 4 equals 0, as long as the equation equals 0, we can assign each individual piece equal to 0. So we can say x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. Now, this only works if this side is 0. If the side is not 0, then we can't do it exactly this way. So we'll see problems later on where we can solve things when it's not 0, but in this particular case, we can't do that. So given that, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. I'm going to, those two will cancel. I get x, 0 minus 3 is -3, so x equals -3 is one answer. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. If I add 4, those cancel. I get x equals 4, and that's my other answer. So there are my two answers. Now you can see that the sign changed when we were solving them. And the reason is because to make x equal, or to make x minus 4 equal to 0, x has to be 4, because 4 minus 4 equals 0. To make x plus 3 equals 0, x has to be -3, because -3 plus 3 is going to be 0. So you can see that these two answers check out. There are our answers, and that's how we solve it. Now, using Desmos is kind of a little bit of a different way of being able to do this as well. And I'm going to go over there and go to Desmos. So we will see that. So if we come over here, we can see that when we're working in this particular case, we can just type it in. So desmos.com. We come over here to our graphing calculator. You should be logged in as yourself. It's easier if you log in as yourself. We're going to type in the equation, x squared minus x minus 12 equals 0. I'm going to change the color of the lines just because it's easier. Oops. Change it over to black. And you will notice that it crosses the x-axis at -3 and it crosses the x-axis at 4. So if we come back over here and look at this, we can see that our answers were x equals 3, x equals 4. So you can see that Desmos will give you the answer to that as well. Now I'm going to show you what it's like when it's an equation. So instead of having 0 there, I'm going to put y, and notice it becomes an equation. In that particular case, you'll notice that it is a parabola. And you'll see it still crosses, though, at -3 and +4. So those x-axis values are the ones that are the solution to the equation, this quadratic equation. Okay, let's go to a problem in the book. We want to solve 3b times 9b minus 27 equals 0. We can see that we have two factors here. 3b is 1, which is a monomial, and then we have a binomial that we have over here. Of course, as long as they are multiplying, you see that they're multiplying in between here, I can set them equal to 0. So 3b equals 0, and 9b minus 27 equals 0. This one I divide both sides by 3, so b equals 0. On this side, I add 27 to both sides. There should be an equal 0 there. Add 27 to both sides, those cancel. We get 9b equals 27. Divide both sides by 9. b equals 3. So there are our two answers. So we know that we can plug them in. We can go plug those in, and we can find the values or determine if those values do work in that particular case. And we'll move on to the next ones. We'll move on to the next one in the next video.